Imagine this. You come home after a long day, tired and ready to relax. All you want is to pull into your driveway, step inside, and finally have some peace. But instead, you find your driveway blocked. Not by a stranger, not by a guest who parked, by mistake, but by your own neighbor. That's the nightmare that Reggie Carter, a hard-working black middle school teacher in Lakeland, Florida, faced almost every day. For months, his neighbor Marcus Vanderholt treated Reggie's driveway like his personal parking spot. Reggie tried everything: patience, politeness, even reaching out to the HOA, but nothing worked. What started as a small irritation quickly turned into a battle over boundaries, dignity, and respect. And when Reggie finally decided to push back, Marcus's arrogance came crashing down in front of the entire neighborhood. Reggie wasn't the kind of man who liked drama. He lived a simple life. His little brick house wasn't fancy, but it was his safe place. The lawn was neatly trimmed, his driveway was just big enough for his car, and his evenings were reserved for grading papers, watching the game, or enjoying quiet. But that peace didn't last long once Marcus set his sights on Reggie's property. At first, when Reggie came home to find Marcus's shiny silver Lexus in his driveway, he assumed it was a mistake. Maybe Marcus needed to unload something quickly. Maybe it was a one-time thing. Reggie brushed it off. But then it happened again, and again. Each time, Marcus had some excuse. "I'll only be here a few minutes," or "You've got plenty of space on the street." But those few minutes often turned into hours. Soon, Marcus stopped explaining at all. He acted like Reggie's driveway was free real estate. Now, Reggie was patient, but he wasn't blind. He knew what was happening. His neighbor wasn't just parking his car, he was sending a message. Your boundaries don't matter. Reggie did what anyone reasonable would do. He knocked on Marcus's door and asked politely. He left notes under the windshield. He explained that it was his property, his space. But every time, Marcus brushed him off with a smirk, rolling his eyes as if Reggie was being overly sensitive. That arrogance cut deeper than the inconvenience itself. Because in this neighborhood, Reggie stood out. He was one of the few black homeowners in a community where most people looked like Marcus. And when Marcus ignored him, dismissed him, and acted entitled to his driveway, Reggie couldn't help but feel the weight of something more than just a parking dispute. The breaking point came one evening after school. Reggie pulled into his street and froze. Not only was Marcus's Lexus sitting in his driveway, but a sleek black BMW was parked beside it. 2 cars on his property. It looked less like a home and more like a public parking lot. That was it. Enough was enough. That night, Reggie sat on his couch, frustrated but calm. He pulled out his phone, looked up the number for the local towing company, and saved it. He had tried kindness. He had tried patience. Now it was time to show Marcus that actions have consequences. The next time Marcus parked there, Reggie didn't knock. He didn't argue. He didn't leave a note. He simply called the tow truck. 20 minutes later, Marcus's Lexus was hooked up and hauled away. For the first time in weeks, Reggie felt relief. But peace with a man like Marcus doesn't last. Later, that night, there was a thunderous knock on Reggie's door. Marcus stood outside, red-faced and furious. He shouted, he threatened, he reminded Reggie that he was on the HOA board, as if that gave him control over everything. Reggie, calm as ever, simply told him, "The car was on my property. The law is on my side." And with that, Marcus had no choice but to pay the towing fee. That should have been the end of it. But Marcus wasn't the type to accept defeat. The days that followed, Reggie started receiving HOA violation letters out of nowhere. First, they said his porch plants weren't allowed, then it was his garbage bins, then the paint on his mailbox, all nonsense, things that had never been an issue before suddenly became violations. It was obvious who was behind it. Marcus was using his influence on the HOA to retaliate. And when that didn't satisfy him, he went further. One evening, while Reggie was watering his lawn, a patrol car pulled up with flashing lights. The officer stepped out and said they had gotten a call about suspicious activity. Suspicious for watering his grass? Reggie didn't have to guess who had made that call. This was no longer about a driveway. It was harassment. It was intimidation. But Marcus underestimated one thing. Reggie's patience wasn't weakness. It was strength. And then came the Saturday, morning that changed everything. The sun was bright, the air was calm, and the neighborhood was buzzing with weekend routines. Families were trimming their lawns, washing cars, chatting on porches. Reggie looked out his window, and there it was again. Marcus's Lexus, bold and arrogant, parked in his driveway. Reggie didn't hesitate. He picked up his phone, dialed the tow company, and said, "Same address." Within 20 minutes, the rumble of the tow truck echoed down the street. But this time, things were different. This time, half the neighborhood was outside to see it happen. Conversations stopped. Neighbors pulled out their phones. And just as the driver began lifting the Lexus, Marcus stormed out of his house in a bathrobe, screaming at the top of his lungs. "Stop! That's my car!" he yelled, waving his arms frantically. The driver stayed calm. "Sir, this vehicle is parked illegally on private property. We have authorization." Marcus's face turned crimson. He shouted across the yard, hurling insults at Reggie, claiming this was harassment, even yelling that Reggie didn't belong here. His words carried the sharp edge of prejudice, and this time the entire neighborhood heard it. Phones were recording. Heads were shaking. Neighbors whispered to each other. Marcus wasn't just exposed, he was destroying his own reputation in real time. The Lexus rolled away on the back of the truck, and Marcus stood in his driveway, powerless and humiliated. After that public scene, everything changed. Marcus tried to recover. He filed more HOA complaints. He sent Reggie a lawyer's letter threatening action. But nothing worked. The HOA reviewed the case and found no wrongdoing. The towing was legal. The lawyer's letter went nowhere. And the neighbors who once tolerated Marcus now avoided him completely. At community gatherings, people no longer greeted him with casual waves. They turned their backs. His arrogance had been stripped away, not by arguments or fights, but by his own actions, witnessed by everyone. Reggie, meanwhile, never gloated. He didn't brag or rub it in. He simply went back to his peaceful evenings, his quiet life, and his driveway, finally his own again. But beneath that calm, there was a quiet victory. Not just for himself, but for what it represented. Because this was never just about a parking spot. It was about boundaries. It was about respect. And for Reggie, as one of the few black homeowners in that neighborhood, it was about standing up to a kind of entitlement that carried more weight than most people realized. By staying calm, by refusing to let anger consume him, Reggie exposed Marcus for who he really was. He didn't need to yell or fight. He stood firm, dignified, unshakable. And in doing so, he reminded the entire community of a powerful truth. Silence in the face of disrespect only allows it to grow. But when you stand your ground, when you refuse to be walked over, you don't just protect yourself. You set an example for everyone watching. So the next time someone tries to diminish you, to cross your boundaries, to treat you as less than what you are, ask yourself, will you let it continue, or will you stand firm like Reggie? Because sometimes the most powerful statement isn't loud, it's steady, it's firm, it's undeniable, just like Reggie. If you've faced something similar, share your story in the comments. I might feature it in a future video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so others can see the power of standing your ground.